Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the first LU-CIX virtual event of the year. It's still sad that we can't meet in person, but I'm thankful that we have the internet and we can keep connected in this way. Today we are doing this session in webinar mode, so all attendees, you won't be able to use your mic or your video. So if you have any questions or if you have any comments throughout the forum today, then please leave your comments in the chat and use the question and answer for any questions. I think there's a raise hand option as well there. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first presentation, which is an update on the PISAX project. This is a new project, a new threat intelligence sharing platform, and we're going to hear from Fokko and Nicolas, who have pre-recorded the presentation, and then there will be an opportunity for questions after at the end. So with that, I will hand it over to the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicolas Debeffe, and I'm working for LU-CIX, which is the Internet Exchange Point in Luxembourg. During this presentation, my colleague, Fokko Dijksterhuis, will talk about what exactly is an information sharing and analysis center, most commonly called an ISOC. Then he will give a few words about the setup of cooperation between information sharing communities at European level, an initiative on which he is currently working. And finally, Fokko will also elaborate on the support of Europe regarding PISAX. After his presentation, I will introduce the PISAX initiative, which aims at creating an information sharing community for Internet exchange points. By the way, by the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A round, so feel free to drop your questions within the chat. So, Fokko, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Nicolas, for that introduction, and indeed, thank you all for having us and me as well, particularly here, to contribute to this session today. Indeed, I am here from my role within the Empowering EU ISIX project, which it is called. I will explain a little bit more of what this project entails and how it relates to the PISAX initiative. Because as you can see here, what we want to talk about today is, of course, cybersecurity and information sharing in the IXP community. So, Empowering EU ISIX. It was at the beginning of last year when the European Commission launched this project. It was back then it was called the establishment of a core service platform cooperation mechanism for information sharing and analysis centers. Quite a mouthful indeed. So we trimmed it down to Empowering EU ISIX, because that is basically what it is about. Nicolas already said an ISAC is an information sharing and analysis center. And this project, it was initiated to both mobilize new ISAC initiative in sectors where there was no such initiative as of yet. And it was also initiated to help with increasing the maturity of the already existing European information sharing and analysis centers. It was back in 2020 when the Capgemini-led consortium of, amongst others, Intrasoft, TNO, Aben, and Spark Legal won this call, and we are currently executing this project for the European Commission, which we, of course, do in very close alignment and cooperation with ENISA, the European Agency for Cybersecurity. So, I have already mentioned the word ISAC and Information Sharing and Analysis Center a couple of times now, but I think it's important to indeed start at the very beginning. What exactly is this concept and why is it of importance also to you? Basically, an Information Sharing and Analysis Center is developed by stakeholders within a community, for example, a sector or an industry, who are exposed to similar cybersecurity threats and issues. a number of organizations within that sector come together to actually share information and to also develop services that will help them increase the cyber resilience of this sector. Now, there are numerous ways and a diverse range of activities which can be undertaken to actually achieve this goal, to indeed increase the cyber maturity and resilience of these members. And a couple of them will be mentioned as well. Now, why are these European ISACs important? First off, of course, cybersecurity resilience is, and it definitely should be, a top priority. We've seen the cyber incident steadily increasing over the last years, months even so, and it should be on top of everybody's agenda by now. And of course, when we're talking about the cyber realm, country borders are of very little relevance. For a cyber criminal, there's no such thing as a border, which also means that international cooperation to actually combat these challenges needs to be on top of the agenda as well, and is of very much importance. An ISAC, information sharing and analysis, is a perfect vehicle and basically an operating model to facilitate this kind of collaboration. So on the right side, you can see that generally speaking, there are three kinds of models for ISACs. They tend to be geographically oriented, for example, for a specific country, or sector or industry oriented, or thematic oriented, for example, on operational technology. The ISACs, when we're talking about ISACs in this project, we mention the ones who are on an EU level operating and who are sector or industry focused. For example, the already existing financial ISAC, the maritime ISAC, European energy ISAC, or the European railway ISAC, but of course also the European IXP community ISAC, which is PISAX. So joining an ISAC, it has many advantages for the individual, the organizations, and the entire sector alike. You can think of receiving alerts and notifications about incidents that are happening, having in-depth discussions with peers and experts on confidential topics, sharing best practices, but also networking, community building with each other. But regarding this analysis activities, it's about co-organizing activities, which means you can also bundle resources. And all this cooperation, of course, leads to increased sector-wide situational awareness. Also, tools and products can be developed, which can be used by all the organizations alike. These are a number of the advantages and benefits of information sharing and analysis centers, which are also mentioned on the right side by Inisa. When we're talking about the Empowering EU ISACs project, which has been running for over a year now, it's good to stress a couple of things. Basically, we tend to facilitate and support a number of sectors, of which the IXP community is one. You can see indeed that, for example, the financial sector, the water sector, the maritime, and so on are also being supported. And we do so in a number of ways, of which one is, for example, also organizing sessions for these communities to also increase collaboration between these individual ISACs. We've organized a number of thematic conferences and a large-scale sessions where a large portion of the members of ISACs were participating. As you can see on the right side, some specific examples are mentioned for the facilitation we undertake. For the European maritime sector, we help them with establishing a new ISAC initiative, for example. With the European Railway, it's more focused on establishing an IT platform to facilitate information sharing. With European Energy ISAC, it's more related on the so-called soft support, where we have organizational support. So it's all kinds of activities we undertake, and this is also how we tend to support and facilitate the PISAX initiative as well. And I think that's the main important point we would like to stress from our point of view, from our Empowering EU ISACs project, that indeed the European Commission and our consortium strongly encourage the PISAX initiative, and we look forward to supporting its future endeavors. So if you would like to know more about our project, you can contact me or us via the contact on the right side, or you can visit our website. But for now, I would like to give the floor back to Nicolas for the remainder of this presentation.
Yes, thank you, Fokko. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about PISAX. What exactly is PISAX? PISAX stands for Pan-European Information Sharing and Analysis for Internet Exchange Point and GPRS roaming exchanges. It's a CEF Telecom funding program co-financed by the European Union. What exactly is the objective of PISAX? The objective is to create a Pan-European Information Sharing and Analysis Center, most commonly called an ISAC, in order to support Internet Exchange Point and GPRS roaming exchanges. In other words, we want to put in place an automated and secure threat intelligence sharing system for those two communities by laying the basis of a collaboration hub that will help them to enhance their cybersecurity posture. Because yes, against all the current threat, we are definitively stronger together, and access to information is crucial. What is the strategy for building the ISAC? We want to gather IXPs and GRX communities around a reference threat intelligence platform. The chosen platform is MISP, which originally stands for Malware Information Sharing Platform, and which has been recently rebranded as MISP Threat Sharing, more global. We have created instances of this MISP platform for both communities. Who is behind PISAX initiative? We have Post-Luxembourg, LU-CIX, and Security Made in LU. What is Post-Luxembourg? Post-Luxembourg is the national historical telecom operator, but Post has also an important background in cybersecurity, with the Post Cyber Force dedicated teams, which delivers managed security services, perform pen test, SOC and CSIRT activities, and telecom security services. But Post has also been for a long time an important contributor to the MISP threat sharing platform. And what is the most interesting for us in the context of PISAX is that Post is member of the GSM Alliance, and also an active contributor to the Information Sharing and Analysis GSMA groups. In the context of PISAX, the main role of Post is to strengthen an existing ISAC GRX community and also enhance the platform automation. What is LU-CIX? As already said, LU-CIX is the Internet Exchange Point in Luxembourg, but LU-CIX is also a member of EuroIX. In the context of PISAX, the main role of LU-CIX is to coordinate the PISAX project. I am currently the PISAX project coordinator, and also to build this new IXP information sharing community. LU-CIX is also supporting LUNOC, which stands for Luxembourg Network Operator Group, which is technical discussion group. And besides these technical activities, LU-CIX has also some promotional activities with the Luxembourg Internet Days, which is an annual conference dedicated to network security, cloud security, and crisis management. Last but not least, LU-CIX also operates the National DDoS Scrubbing Center, which is a crisis security measure meant to mitigate high bandwidth volumetric DDoS attacks. What is Security Made in LU? Security Made in LU is a brand, and under this brand, we have three main pillars. The most important pillar is Circle.lu, the Computer Incident Response Center in Luxembourg. These guys lead the MISP development since 2011 and operate multiple sharing platforms in different sectors. In the context of PISAX, they have helped in the PISAX platform deployment, and they will ensure PISAX sustainability after the CEF grant, which will end in August 2021. Second pillar, Cases.lu, which delivers cybersecurity awareness, and develop and support Monarch, which is a risk management platform and methodology. finally, the C3 pillar, Cybersecurity Competence Center Luxembourg, under which we can find Room 42, which is a cyber attack scenario simulation dedicated to training of incident response teams. Now, let's talk a little bit about the PISAX platform. How can I join the PISAX community? Well, it's simple. By accessing the PISAX platform, which is available for free for internet exchange points. The PISAX platform is currently accessible via a publicly exposed web interface, and you can find the link in the presentation, https://misp.pisax.org. Under this link, you will have a self-registration feature in order for you to request an account. And during the self-registration account process, please reference the internet exchange point to which you belong within the command form. It's easier for us in order to grant you the access. What's currently in the PISAX platform? Currently, we have mainly information about vulnerabilities related to IXP assets, router switches, vulnerabilities on IXP network protocol, BGP, VXLAN, EVPN, etc. And also vulnerabilities on IXP software like Routinator, Bird, etc. We have also injected some indicators of compromise focused on IXP potential threats, like the recent SolarWinds issue with Sunbird, Teardrop, and Raindrop. What else can we find in this platform? Well, to my opinion, threat information that we can find in log correlators or SIM events, or in your IDS events, or honeypot if you have ones. If you have any other ideas of interesting things to put within the platform, please discuss this topic in the EuroIX PISAX mailing list that you can find in the following email address, pisax@lists.euroix.net. And you can subscribe to this mailing list on the following link. Yeah, and what can you find? What else can you find? I would say everything that you, the community, can bring within the platform. And for that, we definitively count on you. And it's the end of my presentation, and we can switch to the question and answer round. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas and Fokko. That was a very interesting presentation. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A. I have one question from Alexei, and he says, in Finland, we've got about a dozen national ISAC groups for different industries. Finnish IXPs take part in the ISAC generally meant for internet service providers. Should our national ISACs be representatives to EU ISACs and PISAX?
Well, yeah, I don't know if Fokko is still in the call, because I think it's a question for him.
Sorry, Fokko, did you?
I am. No worries. Let's see. That's a very good and interesting question indeed. It differs really per country how internally within these member states ISACs are shaped. So indeed, I can imagine in some countries, for example, the Netherlands, but also in Finland, there are numerous ISACs already active. It really depends on the EU ISACs themselves on how they organize this participation. At times, you indeed see that the representatives from the national ISACs are the direct participants in the EU ISAC. But with other ISACs, we have also seen that it can be the actual participants from, the organizations themselves, which can also partake in the EU ISAC. So I guess that is also a question in a certain way to you, Nicolas. If you consider, for example, a chair of a national ISAC to be a good participant in the PISAX initiative, or whether it should be, roles and participants from the individual organizations within these countries.
Well, within PISAX, we accept every organization that is related to the IXP community through Europe. I think we can also extend a little bit outside Europe. I think that in the domain of information sharing, the more the community is big, the best it would be in order to protect ourselves and to enhance our security posture. So I think it's always a good idea.
Yeah, so I also think with the way that PISAX has been designed, that it would make sense, because the information sharing also takes place on a very operational level, that the technical information is shared between the participants, that it would make sense that not only representatives from national ISACs, but also the underlying organizations would be able to partake. But it was a good question, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. So we've got a few minutes, and actually I have a question, and that is a couple of weeks ago, Malcolm Hussey from LINX gave us a presentation which talked about the NIS2 directive, which also covers cybersecurity. I was wondering, is there any links between NIS2 and the PISAX project?
Yeah, I think the idea of NIS2 or NIS directive is currently to establish some communication and some discussion between CSIRT, but also from local entities, and also to develop this communication about everything that is related to information security, threat intelligence, etc. So I think definitively it's in the idea of the NIS directive.
Thank you. And actually, one more question. So, who decides on, or who identifies the different vulnerabilities, and who from the IXPs do you think should really be involved in this?
Regarding vulnerabilities, yeah, we currently inject vulnerabilities within the platform. From our side, currently it's manual. We have also an idea to automate this process and to base this injection process on the IXPDB, for instance, where we can find information about different assets that are currently managed by EXPs. So yeah, currently the process is manual. That's why it's important also to build this community and to enhance this community. And really, I would appreciate if as much as possible, person from the IXP connect to the platform and create an account on the platform, visit the website, and also subscribe to the mailing list, so we can discuss also on different enhancements that we can do within the platform. Because yeah, we have, as it was stated during the presentation, we have Circle, which leads the development of MISP. So these guys are capable to develop things. They have developed some modules like passive DNS, for instance, or CVE module in order to extract CVE records. So there is really room for improvement within the platform. And what would be really great is that while growing this community, we come with new needs, and we make this platform evolve in a sense, technically, but also organizationally.
Thanks, Nicolas. One last, and I think this is maybe more of a comment or something for you to think about. How about using the peering DB for accounts to log into the PISAX website? So I think that's.
You mean yeah, using peering DB as a single sign-on or something like that in order to log? Yeah, why not? it has to be analyzed. I suppose if peering DB is supporting standard SSO protocols like I don't know, SAML or OpenID, we can eventually have a look at a way to interface this platform and try to externalize the authentication to the peering DB. Yeah, why not?
Thanks, Nicolas. Okay, so with that, I would like to thank Nicolas and Fokko for your time and the presentation and sharing the information about the PISAX project. So thank you.
Thank you, Bijal.
Thank you for having us.
In an effort to save some time, we've pre-recorded some messages from the patrons. So I would now like to bring that on, and so you can meet our patrons.
Hi, my name is Florian, and I'm proud to represent Arista Networks as a patron of EURIX. Over the past few months, Arista Networks worked relentlessly to add new models to our 70 to 80 R3 series portfolio, which is based upon Jericho 2. The new models feature SFP28 ports for 10 and 25 gig connectivity, as well as up to 8 times 100 gig based on QSFP28. Furthermore, we're working on improving our feature set for IXPs across the whole R series platform and make it consistent between R, R2, and R3 devices. We're also working on an IXP blueprint, which is essentially a config guide featuring configurations for reseller ports, as well as a whole EVPN VXLAN fabric for internet exchanges. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly at florian@arista.com or to my colleague David Murray via dm@arista.com. Please enjoy the forum.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael Holmberg and I do come from Extreme Networks. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes giving you a short update on some interesting things from Extreme. So just to recap from a previous virtual forum, where I basically covered something called a universal hardware, which is a single hardware SKU, a single software license SKU, and a single warranty across all SKUs. The intent of this is to simplify kind of switching, generally speaking. So this universal hardware actually is capable of running multiple network operating systems. So as you can see, you can run Exos, you can run SLX OS on it, or VOS. And I also covered in the previous virtual forum kind of the IX use case from Extreme point of view, having two separate platforms, being the SLX platform for medium and large side IXPs, while the Exos platform would cover the small and medium side IXPs. Now, just as a small update here, one thing I kind of want to pinpoint is with an Exos-based platform, obviously we have some VPLS deployments out there within the IX community. Now, with kind of VPLS, you have something called the PSTag. The acronym stands for port-specific tag, which would allow you to have multiple VLANs sharing the same bridge domain and eventually then be mapped to VPLS pseudo-wire port transport within the Internet Exchange. Now, as said, this is currently with VPLS. Now, with Exos 31.2, which was recently released, you get basically the same function on a VXLAN service VLAN as well. which basically, if you look at the illustration on the left-hand side, would allow you to have ISP1, ISP2, and ISP3 sharing the same bridge domain, so basically being in the same broadcast domain, as well as they would be mapped into the VXLAN service VLAN with the VNI that would traverse the CLO architecture you can see here, an EVPN VXLAN fabric, and eventually connect into ISP4 on the far end leaf node. So all of them are on the same broadcast domain. So this just as a small update in regards to extreme and kind of pinpoint one pretty cool feature for the IXPs within Nexus. So with that said, thank you for my side.
I'm Jonas Vermeulen. I am part of Nokia. I'm working for the technical pre-sales team. And in this session, I want to give you a few pointers how we can help you to scale out your network. The area of WDM, you will basically have an option to either use transceivers or transponders to underpin your interconnections between different sites. Transceivers are the small pluggables you insert in your router, and they provide you a simple, straightforward way to set up that DCI link. However, it might not be powerful enough to cover the distance that you might need. In that case, transponders would be a better option, where you basically have modular solutions from Nokia that effectively have a higher link budget and allow you to build up more complex networks, such as mesh networks, or to interwork with other DWDM infrastructure. Another advantage would be that you can also offer that as a layer 1 service to your customers. So overall, it's not really about which one is better than the other, but it's also about which one is fitting best in your network and with your strategy. In the area of IP, Nokia has basically its service router operating system, which was specifically tailored to implement carrier interconnectivity services. And over the years, we've basically put a lot of emphasis in standardizing, implementing and maturing our EVPN implementation to further improve layer 2 services. On the data plane side, since 2017, we've also got a chassis-based solution that give you 400 gig interfaces. But at the same time, we also have pizza box devices allowing you to build a leaf and spine fabric also with 400 gig as interconnectivity standards. With that, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks, bye.
Hello, my name is Per Berman. I am in charge of marketing at Smart Optics. Smart Optics is a Scandinavian DWM supplier. Our offering is divided into two parts. We have our optical solutions and our optical devices. Our optical devices is a full portfolio of transceivers and passive filters. We do, however, focus on high-end DWM transceivers, supporting higher speeds such as 100 and 400 gig. The second part of our offering is our solutions, and that consists of our open line systems and our ROADMs. We have focused our products to do, for example, DCI interconnect, and we would like them to be easy to operate and low in cost. All these solutions are developed and manufactured at our Stockholm site in Sweden. Something that we do get a lot of questions about today are 400 ZR and upgrades to it. A lot of customers are looking into it, and we have a trial that was done last year in December that we wanted to bring up. It was Infi together with Verizon Media. They wanted to test to upgrade from 100 to 400 gig over our line system. What they did, they had the system running PAM4 low cost 100 gig, And then they added 400 gig switches using 400 ZR optics. The test was successful. We have a setup like this in our lab, so if you want to see it, we are more than happy to run you through it. Please reach out to us and we will give you a demo. It will take only a couple of minutes to show you how it's done. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of our patrons for their continued support. Next up, we have a 15-minute coffee break. So go grab yourself a coffee and we'll be back shortly where Flavio will take us straight through into the routing security panel. So we'll see you back here at 1:45. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this first LU-CIX virtual forum, Keeping IXPs Connected. Just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Flavio Luciani. I am a member of the LU-CIX Forum Program Committee, and I'm going to moderate this session. We now have a really interesting panel about routing security at internet exchange points. So how IXPs play key roles in contributing to a more secure and resilient internet. The content of this panel is based on the information that we gathered by the route server filtering survey that we have submitted in the last weeks. So thank you to all of you who helped us by answering the survey, the poll. Your contribution has been really significant. If you have not yet responded, you can find the link of the survey on the webpage of the LU-CIX virtual forum. Please, it should be useful to get more data available in order to have a more complete picture possible about the route server filtering inside of our community. By the way, during this panel, I will show you some poll results that will help us to drive the discussion. I still remind you that in every moment you can use the Zoom Q&A box if you have some question, if you have some comment, we will ask the question on your behalf. Also, please write the name of the panelists if you want to ask a question to one of them. Okay. Now, I would like to introduce you all our panelists. Today with me, we have Rob Lister from LONAP, Michalis Oikonomakos from GRIX, Ondrej Filip from Nix.cz, Andrew Owens from NapAfrica, and Massimiliano Stucchi from Internet Society. Welcome, and thanks for accepting our invitation. Okay, so just for having an insight from you, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and to describe your IXP environment, especially focused on route server implementation that you have in place, software used, infrastructure, if you are present in more than one location, and especially focused on the current level of filtering provided by your route server as well. I would like to start from Rob Lister. Please, Rob.
Hello there. I'm working for LONAP. LONAP has about 223, according to my screen, but 223 members. We are based in about 9 different data centers throughout London, and we use 2 root servers, both running Bird 2 at the moment. We are using only Arista switches for the peering LAN.
Okay, so have you finished, Rob?
And the level of filtering that we have is pretty much what everyone else does, which is RPKI with IRR database fallback. And it works pretty well.
Okay, so thank you very much. Now I would like to ask the same to Ondrej.
So hello, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Ondrej Filip. I'm from Nix.cz, which is an exchange point based in Prague, but also Bratislava and Vienna. We currently cover 3 countries. And the setup, from the point of the security doesn't differ much from what Lister has described. Rob, sorry. So we have 2 route servers. Both are based on birds, not surprisingly. We also do support RPKI filtering, so the invalids are filtered out. We also have RDB filtering based on AS sets, which is also, I think, the industry standard. Of course, we check prefix length. If next hop it goes to the same peer that announced it, we filter marchants, Bogon ASNs. Also, we check if the first ASN in the BGP path is equal to the peer's ASN. And also, we filter a tier 1 AS in the BGP path prefixes unless that tier 1 has a peering with the route server. So I would say pretty standard set of filters. And the root server can also filter some prefixes, but it also supports remotely trigger black hole filtering. And also we have a hardware-based DDoS protector, so you can reroute some of the prefixes to that, and then it does some cleaning or at least traffic shaping, for example, for you. So that's another service that we offer to all members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ondrej. Michalis, hi and welcome.
Hello, nice to meet you, Flavio, once again. Good afternoon to all participants. I am Michalis Oikonomakos. I am the head of the Greek Internet Exchange, which is run in 2 separate IXPs, one in Athens in 3 interconnected data centers, and one in Thessaloniki, the second biggest city in Greece, with presence in 1 data center. The IXP in Athens has around 53 members currently, and the other one in Thessaloniki has 21. We have more than 95% of our members connected to our route servers. We run 2 route servers in the IXP in Athens and another 2 instances in Thessaloniki. Both are based on Bird 2. As the other participants of the panel already described, we are also heavily filtering RPKI and RRDB. We enabled RPKI sometime during July 2020 without any major issues noticed as we did that. Under that, we were pretty confident, technically wise, when we made the decision to enable RPKI invalid drop, since we have gained valuable experience over the years in such topics, as we have a very early involvement in RPKI together by wearing our Greek NREN hat, GRNet. Lastly, we are also an early months participant and supporter.
Good to hear. Thank you, Michalis. Andrew Owens from NapAfrica. Andrew, welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew from NapAfrica. We are in South Africa, in Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg, but we've ended up serving the majority of sub-Saharan Africa. We have around 480 networks connected at our exchange points. We also have two root servers per exchange, all running Bird 2. And our filtering is RPKI and IRR. So we don't consider the IRR as a fallback. Obviously, RPKI doesn't have path validation yet, so we use a combination of the 2.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, it was an interesting first round. I would like also to introduce another panelist that we have today with us, and he is Massimiliano Stucchi from Internet Society. Hi, Max, and welcome.
Hi everyone.
Good. So now we can go through the first discussion point. Thank you very much for this description about the environment that you are that you have introduced ourselves. Okay, based on the poll result, in this chart you can see the most common root server support requests from infrequent to very frequent. It should be interesting to hear from you which is your experience on that, especially focused on workload and the impact that these requests have on your daily activities, and especially still focused on route server filtering support. We can still start from Rob Lister.
I think I would agree with that, actually. I don't. I think we're just supporting the same stuff we've always been supporting, and in my mind, I don't think adding our PKI to the mix has really caused us any additional support overhead. We've had a few questions. I think one good thing to come out of it was we redid all of the documentation and put it on our website, and so we have some quite good and quite clear instructions on how to set it up. Yeah, we haven't seen a massive support overhead. We still get the odd session configuration, max prefix succeeded, things where we need to intervene sometimes, but I would agree with that.
Yeah. Ondrej.
Very similar to Rob, actually. We have like roughly two requests a month, not more. So really, definitely nothing that makes us overloaded in this regard. Usually those requests are question why my prefix is filtered, what happened, and when we clarify what happened, then the issue is usually solved, because those guys who are actively, checking their own prefixes, they usually also know how to fix it. So nothing really complicated for us. The other side of it is that we also proactively call some members, but I think that's going to be a topic of some next round. So yeah.
Okay, great.
Not really.
Yeah. Before Michalis, I would like to ask also to the audience if you want to share your experience in terms of support to your members in terms of filtering or route server. You can use the Q&A box if you want to ask a question, or if you want to also share your experience. Michalis.
Yeah, Flavio. I would like to differ from what Ondrej and Rob just said, but I highly doubt that I am able to do so. On our environment, the workload regarding those issues is pretty standard. It's pretty average. Not a big deal, as Ondrej and Rob already stated in Nix.cz and LONAP. We do mark any rejected prefixes with large communities, as proposed by LU-CIX. So it's pretty straightforward for any given member to understand why its prefix is being rejected via using the looking glass. Most cases, even if there are very few, are come from customers that exceed the maximum prefix point, and some rare occasions we have some rejected prefixes related most probably to RPKI or RDB filtering. Moreover, as a last note, we have extensively documented any filtering policies performed on our route servers and any BGP communities that apply in our setup. So in that context, that helps a lot our members in order to understand what kind of filtering is going onto our route servers.
Okay, so thank you, Michalis. Andrew, what was your experience on that?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say particularly that enabling RPKI invalid drops has caused much additional support. We still see the traditional prefixes being rejected because IRR is not up to date. We're in this interesting situation where, if you have 96% of all of the ASNs connected to the exchange peering with a root server, you tend to be seen as a router or sort of as an ISP type of thing. And so prefix drops do cause a lot of support for us, because you start seeing a lot of asymmetrical traffic and things don't happen as expected. So that's still our biggest point of support.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments? Any question? They are very, very welcome if you have. So thank you very much. It was really interesting. For now, we can go through the discussion number 2 while waiting for some question from the audience. So still based on the poll results, this pie chart shows us how much support participants have required to IXPs for enabling RPKI and for creating ROAS, from not so much support to a lot of support. I think that this chart could tell us something more, especially referring to network operators that they are implementing the routing security best practices. I would like to ask you, and it is maybe interesting to hear from you, which is the situation in terms of adoption among your members, I don't know, in your country. So what are you experiencing on that in terms of routing security adoption? Rob?
I think there's been quite a lot of uptake. I haven't yet looked at the graphs for this year, but we've had quite a strong uptake. We seem to be going through this second cycle now of don't forget about your IRR data, because people seem to set up the ROAs and say, oh, I'm done, but then forget that you have to maintain your AS sets, and the stuff in the IRR database is still kind of important, because we still need that AS set to be there, so we know which ASNs to start looking for in the first place. So we've had one or two people go, oh, I've got all my ROAs set up, why are you not accepting my prefixes? And then you find, oh, you haven't updated your AS sets and things like that. But generally it's been quite good. We also signed up to Manners, and we put a little logo next to all the members that have also signed up to Manners, and we try to encourage that where we can. So it's been quite good, and we push it wherever we can. And there's some members where they are now sort of really trying to enforce this best practice. So, you know, it will get to the stage where we're not going to peer with you unless you are in Manners or you have RPKI enabled, that sort of thing. So but there are some members that are really pushing for that now.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So what's happening, Ondrej, in your environment, in your XP?
So from this point of view, we have basically two groups of members. You know, we have a special club called Phoenix, which is a club of companies who decided voluntarily to have much higher security standards. And those guys are also appearing in a separate VLAN, but also appearing with the others, of course. But currently it's like 26, 7 companies, and those guys are in perfect shape, you know, because that's the requirement of Phoenix. So they have all ROIs. They you know, very quickly respond to any security incident, basically. Validate and also support DNSSEC, IPv6, everything you could think of the, you know, everything which is the current state of art. So those guys are in perfect shape. In total, I think roughly about 20% of all membership had some issues with one prefix or something. You know, sometimes we filter something, and so those guys kind of react. But sometimes it happens that, you know, some prefix must be filtered and it doesn't comply to a policy. And we have about 10 peers which have, you know, quite a lot of prefixes that are invalid, some of them even more than 50%. And here's some dilemma we have, because of course if we would loosen the rules, we could get more traffic, right? And saying the number of traffic flow in exchange point, that's also the most significant number. But we decided to rather take care more of security, so we rather filters those prefixes out. But we have mixed feeling, of course. If you lose some traffic, it's bad, but if you do something for security, it's good. So as I said, about 10 peers, usually big international guys, have some issues. And also this differs. Usually the local ISP, if they have some issue, they communicate with us. Of course, the local language helps, but they usually fix it quickly. There are some big international companies that it takes some time and they are very slow. But there are also enterprises, for example, some banks where for them, changing a configuration takes centuries. So some members are okay, especially local ISPs. Some enterprises are, not so perfect, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ondrej. I think later, the next discussion will be about the initiative that we are providing to our members in order to improve the number of not only managed participant, but in general, the number of network operators compliant to the routing security best practices. But yeah, so which is the situation in Greece, Michalis? What are you?
I would say that we are in a pretty decent position. There has been a lot of effort during the past years by GRIX and by the Greek network operator group as well, in order to have all involved parties in Greece sign the ROAs and set up proper IRRDB records. I think that those things are pretty much covered nowadays. Of course, there are cases that some things has not been updated for quite some time, but in general, I would say that we are in a good position. That includes all big eyeball networks. Same applies for most of the international players that are connected to our exchange, as far as we have noticed. On the other hand, as we've noticed in many of our members, dropping RPKI invalids inside the network, it's not always possible. It's not always the case. It's not always their top priority, but most of them are slowly working towards that. We, as IXP operators, try to communicate such best practices to every member and help them as much as we can in order to adopt those best practices. Just to give you a rough idea about what can someone experience and notice in our route server environment in the Greek Internet Exchange. As I told you, we have around more than 95% of our members connected to it. So I would say that most of our members are benefiting from the level of security that of routing security that we offer through our route servers. And in that specific environment, we've noticed that less than 0.3% are prefixes that actually are RPKI invalid.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, you mentioned the biggest eyeballs in Greece. Sometimes I don't know if you check on Twitter or some announcement about that some big carriers is RPKI compliant and they are compliant on routing security best practices, and I think it is a good example also for the small and medium-sized internet network operators around the world. And what about Andrew?
Yeah, so if you're looking at RPKI specifically, if you look at the stats, at the moment 90% of Afrinic prefixes are unknown. So RPKI are unknown, and only about 9% are RPKI valid. At our internet exchange, if we looked at the root servers, everything table, 30% of that is RPKI valid. Okay, so that a lot of that is the international networks that are there as well. In terms of security best practices in general, you must remember that Afrinic itself didn't have IRR functionality for a number of years, and so when we started doing IRR filtering at the root servers, we had to push everybody onto the right database, and so that caused a bit of a mess, because now you have a lot of legacy stuff that's still sitting in right, and the networks that were around at that stage, either don't have logins to go and fix it, or just don't have the appetite to move that information onto the Afrinic IRR. In terms of what we see in adoption, the enterprise market is coming up quite quickly. It's getting a lot stronger, getting interested in peering. Because enterprises are usually tied by a lot of red tape, they appreciate, having to go through the process of creating ROAs and creating AS sets and that sort of thing. Because to them, it feels right. It feels like something that should exist in an enterprise space, because if you put the word security on something, they're going to do as much as they can about it. Smaller ISPs are the same. So, newer, smaller ISPs are the same. They want to try and do things as properly, as correctly as possible. I think in terms of adoption, where we are struggling is the very large networks that have been around for a very long time. One of the other things I just want to mention specifically to RPKI is we've come across a number of networks that say they're not going to do anything with RPKI because their vendor equipment doesn't support it yet. And I think that's a massive misunderstanding of your equipment doesn't have to be able to support RPKI to create a ROA. And I think that's one of the benefits of pairing with a root server, because if I look at our market specifically, a large majority of these 480 networks that connect to us run equipment that just doesn't do any sort of RPKI filtering. And so pairing with a root server gives them that functionality, from the start.
Yeah, interesting. Always about routing security best practices and the adoption of them. We all know that there is this initiative called Manners, mutually agreed norms for routing security. Massimiliano, can you give us more information about that, and what is the situation in terms of adoption of those best practices around the world?
Manners is an initiative that's at the moment led by the Internet Society, and the goal of Manners is to increase, of course, routing security, but not only routing security across the world. The goal is to also help foster more collaboration between networks to fight all these issues with routing security and with the internet as a whole. So Manners is a set of actions that should be taken by network operators, and this is in its first form. 4 actions that are about global collaboration, so posting, creating ROAs and creating route objects and AS sets in the Internet Routing Registry system. It's about filtering, so using this information to filter the data, as we have filter BGP announcements, as we have heard already from the other panelists as being best practice. Then we have anti-spoofing, and the last one that I always forget is coordination. Also, making sure that everyone has access to all these information. Now there is this initial set of of recommendations, of actions. If an ISP follows, not all of these are mandatory. Anti-spoofing, as it's more complicated than the others, is it's not a mandatory action to follow. Operators can request to be included in manners to join the community, and then they are shown on the website. They become part of the manners community, and they can show the others with the logo, with their presence on the website. They can show that they are part of this initiative. Now, along the course of time, there have been new other documents being prepared, and it's one is specific for internet exchange points, where the actions are slightly different, but still reflect what, for example, Robert mentioned, that they, as an internet exchange, they try to suggest their members to follow manners, to be part of the community, and that's one of the specific actions that are shown for internet exchange points, together with the helping all their members in implementing it, maybe provide more guidance. And altogether, this manners helps foster more and more routing security. There's also a more recent document that is manners for content delivery networks. And then there's a new one that's in the works that is manners for vendors. And one particular thing that I wanted to say is that Flavio was part of a group of people last year in 2020 who participated as ambassadors, because we, as Internet Society, we try to do as much as we can for the community, and we have maybe taken on board, in this sense, some important people from the community to help us spread the word, spread the message. And Flavio was a very successful participant in that effort.
Thanks. Thank you.
So the adoption, just one last note, this is about numbers. We have about 500 members as a whole. The biggest numbers come from South America, actually, and that's most likely due to how NICBR in Brazil is spreading the word, is doing a lot of capacity building about manners, together with I have wonderful colleagues in the region, and then so the numbers are for South America. We have 189 participants out of 500, but then Europe is second with 101. These are some of the latest numbers, and then we have 63 out of all these 510 are internet exchange points, of which 26 are in Europe. So these are still good numbers, but we could do better, and we always try to improve and convince more people to join the community.
Thanks, Max. Thank you very much. Very interesting. So yeah, the message could be, if you are not manners compliant yet, maybe is it time to think about it. I remember that not so many LIX members are manners compliant. And if you want to know, if you want to get more information about the initiative, you can check the website, manners.org, or you can chat me, you can chat Max, you can ask ISOC to have information about the program. I think the IXP program, and then Max, you are going to explain better what the program is. It is a good reference, it's a good resource if anyone who wants to improve the security level of its own infrastructure. So thank you very much, Max. If you have, just a still remind, if you have any question, we are very glad to answer. We can go now through the discussion number 3. And we spoke about, and we mentioned many times, that not so many network operators among our network community are compliant with routing security best practices, as well as manners participation. This chart shows us that there are two different drivers that drove the implementation of a PKI around IXPs. The first one is encouraging more members to use route server, and the second one is improving confidence in route server. I have many questions in my mind, but one question comes, and it is maybe the right one. So what initiatives do you offer for promotion of, first, how to use route server, and especially focus on filtering? And the second one is what initiatives are you offering to your members for promotion of routing security best practices, and maybe also the implementation? I just put in this slide workshops, events, trainings, documentation. We spoke about, we suggest manners, and so on. Rob, can you, I would like to listen to you.
I think we do a mix of encouraging best practice, encouraging manners. We also incorporate a little bit of routing security and manners into our training courses when we do them. COVID has meant we haven't been able to do as many training events as we would like, but we definitely encourage it. It's in our training materials. And I think a lot of participants go into the training feeling a bit overwhelmed, and they're quite happy to see that it isn't actually complicated. A lot of people sort of go, oh, phew, actually, that's nowhere near as complicated as I thought it was going to be. I just need to go and set up a rower, I'm done, sign up to manners, follow the instructions, and I'm done. In network engineers are kind of, as soon as you start talking about encryption or certificates, it sort of go, oh no, I don't want to get involved in that. It's going to break everything. So it's quite encouraging that on our training courses, the reaction we tend to get is, oh, is that all? Okay, I'll go and do that now. And it's good. And we do encourage people to join manners, as I've said, and it, you know, we're slowly encouraging it, and we hope to get more members on board with it. It's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Ondrej.
So we don't do much like trainings currently in the exchange points. However, we promote mostly using root servers, and we of course try to explain the advantages of root servers. Also, the fact that we offer some additional services on root servers, you know, should be some kind of promotion. If you can use, for example, the DDoS protection there, that's a motivation for you to join it. And when those guys, you know, are connected, we are trying to explain them that they should sign their prefixes using arrays, and also we are members of manners, of course. But the most work is done through the promotion of Phoenix, because once a member is part of Phoenix, then his, or you know, the member's level of security is much higher than even what we are talking here about. So we are more concentrating of growing this group, and we hope to grow this group to certain percentage of the whole membership. And those guys, you know, they are usually, they have very good knowledge of security, and they are very well connected among each other. So if they lack some knowledge, they usually are able to get it in the group. So that's a way how to promote the security features.
Okay. Yeah, and Michalis.
Yeah, Flavio. We do pretty standard things as using tech mailing lists among our members and try to promote best practices there. We also try to do the same on every members meeting we held for our members in GRIX. As a last note, we have integrated in our process when we onboard a new member to promote such best practices and at least suggest them to sign the ROAS and update their RRDB entries. Of course, we do plan in launching events and workshops specifically targeted to routing security, especially for our smaller members, smaller networks connected to the exchange. Hopefully pretty soon, given the current circumstances with COVID, which hasn't permitted us to do so in the last year.
Thanks, Michalis. And Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. Very much the same thing. We do a lot of tech training events. We call them the tech days. And we've had events with ISOC and Manners. We've had Afrinic in to come and do training on RPKI and actually showing members how to sign their prefixes. We also have had a number of router vendors or hardware vendors to come in to show the user base how to implement best practices and security on the actual hardware themselves. And one of the things is, if I look at the graph that you've put there, one of the things is obviously improving confidence in root servers is a very good thing. But what we found as well is if those of us running root servers are the only ones that are doing it, it kind of defeats the purpose. And so a lot of the training has gone into to get people to appreciate those best practices, because you can have all the security you want on your root server, but at the same exchange point, networks can set up bilateral sessions and do no filtering, and then you kind of end up in the same place. So I think important to note here that it's not just about root servers; it's about security awareness.
Okay, we have a question from the audience. The first one. And it is about the awareness of the importance of manners and RPKI. The question is, how can we spread the awareness of the importance of manners and RPKI? What would be the most effective awareness campaign? I don't know if some of you want to answer this question. I have just one, two, three considerations on that. The first one is manners itself. And not only internet society, but the community, that we can spread the word out about manners, and this is a good way to spread also to raise the awareness of the importance of RPKI and routing security best practices in general. What would be the most effective awareness campaign? It is a very good question. Also, still, the community is doing many initiatives and things on that. Maybe, in my opinion, we, Internet Exchange Points, we can do more on that, because we have the largest community of network operators, more or less. The smaller one, the bigger one, but we have many network operators that they are our members, and they also have a good example, because we all have implemented RPKI and security mechanisms on our route server infrastructure. We are giving a good example on that. But I think that we can do more. We can do more in terms not only initiative, but we can be more closer together, just to improve the number of network operators that are compliant on routing security best practices. I don't know how we can do that. Maybe I would like to take the advantage of this panel just to suggest the community if maybe we can create a sort of working group on that, and we can try to figure out how, which is the good way for the community, the Internet Exchange Point community, to spread the awareness of the importance of the routing, not only RPKI and manners, but the well-known industry routing security best practices. I don't know what do you think? I would like to ask also to you all panelists if you want to answer this question, and if you have some comment to make. Yeah, Ondrej. Also Rob, yeah. First, Ondrej.
I just wanted to kind of nod to you. I think, you know, we are in the position of people who can spread the word. You know, we all usually have some members meetings, and I think this topic is absolutely appropriate for those meetings. And what you know looks to me work best is to do some post-mortem analysis of some security incident, and let's say, for example, the YouTube hijack, you know, the famous one, and then say, you know, guys, this wouldn't happen if everything would be proper sign and if we all would validate. So that's probably the best way how to engage the members, saying them, you know, this wouldn't happen if everybody would validate arrays and if prefixes will be signed. So please do it in your networks and do not forget validation. So I think we don't need to make any sophisticated campaign. Here's a lot of people, here is a lot of exchange points, and you are all central institutions in your countries or areas. So if you spread the word during your members meeting, I think that's enough. And that's pretty big campaign because you are targeting the right people, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ondrej. Rob, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think just maybe 2 points. It's a lot of members that would come to our meetings are the ones that are quite tuned in on it and would do it anyway. And it's how we get to those kind of hard to reach ones that don't come to the meetings, and it's very tricky. But I do think we should push it also as it's another marketing thing, if you like. It's another quality thing to say on your website, we meet the manners best practice, same as if you had to say ISO 27001 accreditation. It could be a part of that as an additional thing. You can say we are ISO 27001 security, whatever other certifications that you have. You can say yes, and we also have manners best practice. And here's what that means for you as a customer. Our network is more stable. We're not likely to suffer from hijacks, all the things that you already mentioned. How do we get to those hard to reach ones? I don't know. I don't know whether we end up with a 2-tier exchange. It's a very interesting idea, this sort of Phoenix. Here's a completely different exchange for only known goodies. I don't know whether we'd get to that stage, but it's a very interesting evolution.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Max.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to add to what Ondrej said. If we look at all the material that's available out there to show people how incidents are happening every day, let me how do you say, present a little bit of what we do at ISOC. But there is we have the manners team, of which I am part-time, has a whole blog about all the incidents, and whenever there's a major one, we try to write sort of a post-mortem or an analysis of what happened, and that can also help you. But then we'll see, in the course of the discussion, we will see also there's there's an added value about joining Manners. That is, you get access to what's called the Manners Observatory. I will tell you more about it later, but that's an added value where you have an interface to see how many incidents you had related to your ASN, but also in your country or in your region. So that is also something you can use to tell your members you should join, and then that's it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Max. We have, I don't know if you have other comments on that. Maybe not. We have another. Oh yeah, Andrew, please.
I wanted to comment. One of the suggestions was, definitely we are, as internet exchanges, in a position to push that message, but it's also up to that community to start influencing other members in the community. And I give just an example, if you looked at peering DB, for example, for a long time we struggled to get people to join peering DB because they just didn't see the point. And it was only when the large CDNs started insisting that they will only peer with you if you do X, Y, and Z, and that changed everything for us, sort of overnight. So there is a measure of the community actually influencing themselves.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Any other comments? No. Okay. We have another question from the chat by Alexi, I think. If somebody in your or maybe it is a comment. Yeah, no, it is a question. If somebody in your country gets targeted by a root hijack, restart the awareness campaign right then, and they're using that as your example case. I don't know if you, yeah. Any comments? Okay, thank you very much. It was very useful to hear from you something more about which is the best way for promotion of routing security best practices and what we could do. What about manners? Because documentation and not only because also presentations at LINX, also IXP manager implementation. So among documentation, among others, is one of the best resources to get information about and to learn more about route server and PKI and routing security best practices in general. So manners, I think, in my opinion, but I think it is a common opinion, it is one of the important resources of knowledge in terms of best practices. So the question I would like to ask to you, Max, is how manners can help IXPs in promotion and implementation of best practices. Before you mentioned the IXP program, and I think it is a good point of reference for anyone who wants to implement routing security best practices and filtering on route server infrastructure. But I think that manners can give us more in terms of promotion and implementation.
Yeah, yes, we do. So let me take a step back and tell you, we have two, so at Internet Society, we have 7 projects we work on, and you can find all of them, the descriptions on our website. 2 of them are one called InfraComDev, which internally we call the IXP project, where we help Internet exchange points in being started in different parts of the world, because not everyone is lucky where they already have an Internet exchange point in their country or in their region. And then we have the Manners project. Now, under the IXP project or InfraComDev, what we have, for example, is there soon is going to be public for everyone, a course that's called IXP 2.0. What is that about? Well, it is not the second version of the Internet Exchange Point course, but it's the course that answers the question that is, then what? You've set up a switch, you've set up a community, but then what do you do with it? And it's about, what you need to set up as additional services, and one of them are route servers. So this is one way we help in also getting together the Manners project and the InfraComDev or IXP project. But focusing more on Manners, we do have lots of materials published. We have a course, we have labs that are accessible. We actually have some public instances across the world, but one of them is here where I live in Zurich. So if you have questions, I can answer them. So people can log in, do a test setting up manners in an environment that is either Cisco or MikroTik, and then Juniper is coming up. We're working on a new Juniper implementation for the exercises. We have an implementation guide that's available, and actually I can tell you that Flavio is also involved in that now, in improving how the implementation guide is. That gives you, it's a document that gives you direct instructions on what you should do to implement the different manners actions. And so there is plenty of material, but on top of that, we're always happy if you approach us and if you ask us to help you with a training course or a presentation or anything we can do to help network providers or IXPs or anyone else implement manners as much as we can.
Oh, thank you, Max. Yeah, we don't have so much time left. I would like to go through the last discussion, and yeah, tools for members. Yeah, tools for members are considered still based on the poll results, very important to improve route server and security. So the question is, do you offer any kind of monitoring tool to your members, or in case, are you planning to do that? Or in general, what do you think about tools as an improvement of routing security? Rob Lister.
Yes, I think this was definitely an interesting question to come, an interesting result to come back from the survey, because what this is telling us is our PKI in and of itself is going really well. We don't particularly need better or more software to do our PKI, but what we do seem to need is more tools for participants so they can see what's going on, and more reporting and monitoring tools. Now, beyond, of course, IXP Manager, which gives you a good insight as to, why your prefixes are not being accepted. It's possible to log into that and you can see exactly why we're not accepting the prefixes, or if we are accepting it, you can see it being accepted in Looking Glass. But I guess the next stage of that is a bit more active alerting going on, so that if something is invalid or we start to see a prefix that's been rejected, some kind of more active alerting, which is not currently something we do, but I'll leave that to other people to elaborate on that.
Great, thank you, Rob. Ondrej.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my view is not very different from Rob's. We provide, of course, two tools. One is very manual. We every week check the number of invalid prefixes, and we are trying to contact the members. And we have, of course, Looking Glass that highlights the invalid prefixes, which is those Looking Glass. It's called Bird Spy, so it's an open source software if you want to use it, developed by my colleagues at Nix.cz. And also, if I have the floor for a second, I would also like to tell you something about new feature inside Bird. That's a new version of Bird released, I think, 4 days ago. So it's very new. It's version 2.08, and in this version, Bird automatically routes channels when there is some RPKI change. So that means, for example, if some prefix changes from invalid to valid or vice versa, then it's automatically removed or inserted into routing tables. So I think that's a feature that probably was the most wanted among the exchange points who use Bird and use RPKI filtering. So just to remind you that there is one more tool for you currently released. We use this version in one of the route server in Nix.cz. So it was tested in developers lab by Bird developers. It's also running in one instance in Nix.cz, so it seems to be stable. So yeah, if you can, please test it and try to deploy it, because that would probably help to speed your root server reacts to those RPKI changes. So that's from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Ondrej. Michalis.
That's a very nice feature, Ondrej, and thanks for bringing it up to the community and for your excellent job on Bird. Yeah, in GRIX, we pretty much employ same things as Ondrej already mentioned. We are providing the looking glass for near real-time monitoring, and we also let our members know about whether any prefix of them is being dropped due to being RPKI invalid. We also extensively use of large BGP communities for tagging, as proposed by GRIX. And lastly, we have some internal monitoring tools which are aggregating stats from our route servers, just to have an overview about what's happening regarding prefixes on a higher level, not in a very detail. Regarding number of announcements, number of drop prefixes, invalids, unknown, RRBB filter, and stuff like that.
Thanks, Michalis. Thank you very much. And yeah, the last one, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess the problem with being asked last in a case like this is that everybody else has already given the answer that I would have given. Yes. We also use IXP Manager, so a lot of the features in IXP Manager are considered as near real-time, monitoring tools, with the looking glass and that sort of thing. The feature that was mentioned now by Ondrej is great, and I think also something for me. I think AS path validation in RPKI would also be a nice to have outside of the tools.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, and thank you all of you. If you're just a very short consideration about tools in Namex, the exchange where I work, we have in place a monitoring tool, a real-time tool. It is BGP Alerter, if you want to, and it is a really good tool to offer to members in terms of routing security, because this tool can send alert in case some of the member is victim of an hijack or a root leak or visibility of loss of prefix or RPKI invalids and something like that. It is really useful, and if you want some other information, drop me an email. I will be very happy to share with you our experience in terms on this real-time monitoring tool. It is very useful, in my opinion. By the way, I have another question to Massimiliano, and because we are speaking about tools, and I know that Manes provides the observatory, and the question is, what is Manes Observatory and how is it useful for network operators and internet exchange points as well? Max.
I have already briefly introduced it. The observatory is a website, is a tool you can use. Your data starts showing up once you join Manners, and what you can see there are all the information about the status of your ASN or your ASNs, and then you can see if there have been any incidents related to your ASN, if you were part of an incident, and then you can see how that compares to the country where you are, or to the region, or to the continent where you are. So it is an important tool to have an insight into how safe your routing is and how you're protecting it, and see how that also compares to other operators in the country or other operators in the area, in the region, and so on. So I'll try to be brief. I know we don't have that much time, but if you have questions about it, just feel free to approach me, and then I can point you in the right direction.
Great, thank you, Max. And thank you. Well, I think we don't have so much time left. Thank you all for attending the panel. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our participants. And I think now it is time for a short break, coffee break. I think 10 minutes, and we can, and see you later. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Flavio. Thank you. Thank you all.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, hello and welcome back after the break. So this is we're now going to go into the second part of the session. But actually, before I do that, I would just like to say a quick thank you to the panelists and also to Flavio for organising the panel and the really interesting discussions that we've just had on routing security. So we are now going to go into the last part of the session of the virtual forum today. And first up, I'm excited to invite somebody else who's a bit of a regular presenter at EURIX, and that is Emile from the RIPE NCC. Romain from IIJ Research is also going to be joining him this afternoon, and we're going to hear about a framework that they're developing to retrieve open data sets. With that, I will pass over to you, Emile and Romain. Thank you.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, thanks for having us in the first place. Actually, Romain's going to do most of the talking. So for you to have a new face to look at. What this is about is on how to efficiently combine open data. We have a lot of data in what I would call silos, things. RIPE NCC collecting a lot of data. There's peering DB. There is the IXP DB. There's loads of data everywhere. And how do you actually combine these types of data effectively? We've been breaking our head over this, and Romain has come up with some nice ideas here. So I'll hand it to Romain.
Okay, thank you very much, Emile. And so let's dive into the slides. So the premises of this work are quite simple. And here I just mean everybody on this call, like we researchers, operators, peering coordinators, we are constantly looking for knowledge about the internet. And this knowledge, then we're going to use it in our daily task. And this is something we are all using the same database. Like we are going through RIPEstat, peering DB, WHOIS, bgp.ht, and we are going through those databases and try to understand something about the internet, so we can use that. What is interesting with those databases is we need all of them. They provide different views, but sometimes they might be a bit hard to use because they also have a different definition for the same thing. And working with Emile, as he just mentioned, we always found that he knows a lot of new database I didn't know, and we saw that there is probably a better way to use all this information and put it together. So that's the goal of this project was how can we design a platform so we can really share all the knowledge we get from these data sources. And we want this platform to be as open as possible. So anyone can add new data to it. We want also this to be as a structured database. It's not just like a repository where you push dumps of your data set, but really like we want like all the data points from the different data set to be interconnected. And of course, this is pretty hard if we use a fixed database schema. So we want a platform that is very extensible to do that. And we discussed a lot about this topic with Emile. And one thing that really caught our interest is knowledge graph. And without giving too much detail, knowledge graph is it's quite simple. It's simply a graph structure where you're going to put your data in it. So in the graph here, each node will be a data point, and you can see that they all have, all these data points going to have a relationship between them. There is we've been inspired by a different knowledge graph. The one that we look the most at is Wikidata, but there is other like famous graph from Google or Facebook, or there is one from the CIA, the World Factbook, that is quite famous too. So to implement our very experimental platform, we looked at one implementation in particular. It's called Wikibase. It's a software that is developed by the Wikimedia organization, and it's the software that is running behind one of their websites called Wikidata. So Wikibase is mainly a graph database with all the wiki tools around it. So it's, of course, it's open source, so it's very easy to start with. And because there is a big community behind it, there's a lot of built-in tools. Just to mention a few, there's like a Python library to access to it. There is a nice querying UI using Sparkle, and they have different web interfaces. And if you go to the Wikidata page, you're going to see that there is some information about networks, but it's very, very general. For example, if you go to the IAG page, then you will just see that so IAG is one of the nodes in the graph, and it has different properties. And it's going to be like it's IAG, it's an enterprise, it's an ISP, it got a logo, image, it's in NASDAQ, etc. So it's very general, and it's not really useful for like operators. So we wanted to make our own Wikibase, and we want this to be really tailored for internet resources. So we have an experimental prototype that we call the Internet Yellow Pages. And this consists of Docker containers that will just provide all the software. And but the main part is also the Python script we are making. So those scripts are fetching data like from online data sources like GRIX, DB, Spamhaus, and it's gonna push this to our Wikibase. So we designed those scripts so we can just run it frequently, so our database can be updated automatically. So we are developing this software, and we have one public, and really it's still at the very experimental stage. We have one public instance at this URL iyp.iaglab.net, and currently we have about 12 data sources. So we get data from PuringDB, Manners, got BGP data from RapViews, DNS data from Rapid7, block list from Spamhaus. Then we have different rankings like SRank. Trunco is a top domain list, a bit like Alexa. We got the eyeball estimate from Epinic. We have a script that can fetch data from the Alice looking glass, so from route servers. And we currently have data from the LU-CIX route server. It's the first route server we start playing with. But if you're running the Alice looking glass, it's very easy to for us to get your data to. And we got also like RPKI data. So using all these data sources, then we have our wiki look like very techy. So we have like here an example. You can see it's a prefix, and we're going to have information related to that prefix, like where it's originated from. Here you have two entries because it might come from two different data sources. So we always put a reference to the data we had. So we have a URL to the data source and where that data is from. So as you can see, it's less general than what we had in Wikidata. So that's the graphical interface. What I'd like to show is some example using the querying UI. And I will try to show two examples. The first one is looking at prefixes that are reported by Spamhaus and that are also seen at a route server. So if I switch to the website, so this is the query. It's in Sparkle. It might be a bit complicated at first, but it's a very powerful language. And so that query just gets, as I said, the prefix that appear at a route server and that are in the blacklist. So that gives us this about 300 different prefixes. If we click on this link, it's going to bring us to the page of the prefix. But for this demo, I'd like to show this graphical representation. So in this tool here, we can browse the graph. So here's the prefix that is reported. So if I click on it, we're going to see the different properties of this prefix. And so we can see here it's reported in Spamhaus, and it's appeared in 2 different route servers. So if we click on this node, you can see that it's a route server for Dijksterhuis Frankfurt. What else could we see? So if I go back to the prefix, we can see that, so that prefix is originated by .as, and it got a raw for .as too. Then we can just continue and browse the graph for some time. Then we can have information about that AS too. And we see that that AS is also reported in a Spamhaus. It's a different Spamhaus block list. So also reported there. And it's from Russia. That graphical interface is just good to browse the data like that and to do this kind of demo. But there is in fact a bit more information on the pages. So if we look at the page for that prefix, we could see, for example, that so the prefix was imported to the route server from different AS. And again, so this is just good for demo and just to play with it. But if you want to integrate this kind of thing in your workflow, the website also provide code. So if you're like me, you like Python, then you can just grab this code, and that code will just fetch the data, and then you can just use your data in your own program. Okay, so that's the first example I wanted to show, and this is an example that just show that we can seamlessly go through a lot of different data sets. We went through data from a route server, from Spamhaus, data from BGP and route views, and it's very transparent to go through all these different data sets. So if I still have time, yeah. So I'd like to show a second example where here we're gonna look at IPv6 prefixes from Netflix that appear in different route servers. And this time I'd like to use a different representation, so I want to use this. In this representation here, we have on the y-axis, you have the prefix. And on the x-axis here, the column shows 3 different IXP. So we have Dijksterhuis Chicago, Frankfurt, and Madrid. And the block here will show that the prefix, it means that the prefix appear in the route server here of Chicago. So the first prefix here appears in the 3 IXPs. What is interesting in this representation is looking at those green blocks. So that means this prefix appear only in Chicago. These 2 prefixes here, the 2 green one, appear only in Frankfurt, and these 2 appear only in Madrid. The color is in fact the dominant domain that we found in Rapid7 for those prefixes. And you can see that those green one correspond to Netflix video. So it's a good way to like very quickly compare like what are the prefixes that are announced by Netflix at those different IXPs, and how they manage their prefix, like how they decided to have some prefix announced in Chicago and not in the other one. And the domain name information also give us some more insight into what are the resources that correspond to these prefixes. Okay. Again, I cannot stress it enough. This project is just starting. We've just started this year, so it's just a few months old. And there is a lot of challenges. I don't have time to go through all of that. We are still like dealing with some of them. Maybe I could mention, like for IXP, one of the challenges we have is to uniquely identify IXPs. It's not as easy as for ASCs, where there is an AS number. And there is a lot of more work to do. We are not really a big fan of the interface, the web page, the wiki web page. We'd like to have something that is more designed for network resources. And of course, we are planning to add a lot more data set to that. And so this is my last slide. I just we would just like to know what are your favorite data set? What would you like to see in this wiki? How would you use this kind of platform? And I'd also like to say about the advantages of adding your data. So if you make a parser and you can add your data to this wiki, it really augments your data, because as you add it, it will be connected to all the other data sets that are already out there. So it really gives you more insight into your own data. And of course, if you have confidential data, you can just start your own. We provide all the software, and you can play with that too. And that's the end of my presentation. So you have our emails here and the link to the website. Thank you very much. If there is any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Excuse me. But I do have a comment for you on identifying IXPs. So something that we use in the IXP database, which is an IXF ID, and each IXP in the database has a unique identification number. So this is already being used by other external organizations. For example, Man is using it, and others as well, because like you said, yes, there's no way to identify IXPs uniquely with networks. It's easy because you've got their AS number, and there's definitely no duplicates of those. The IXF ID is being used as a unique identifier for IXs. So if you want to use that, you can do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely add this. Yeah.
Cool. So I have another question, which is from an anonymous attendee. Great presentation. If you aren't aware, the ASD Australian Signals Directorate also have an open graph visualization tool called Constellation. I'm sure they would be interested in collaborating with you.
Okay, I'm not aware of this, and yes, as researcher, we are always open to collaborations. We are, especially now, we're just starting this project, so it's for us, like that presentation was really a good chance to just like give like what are the ideas we have, and see like how people can use it, and see like if there is already other project or other people working on this kind of thing. Yeah, we are surely interested to collaborate with them.
Yeah, good stuff. Are there any other questions? No, not at the moment. Okay, so if you do think of something after the presentation, then you've got the email addresses there, so please feel free to contact either Romain or Emile, with anything else that can be helpful for them in their project. So Emile and Romain, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have a presentation from Holly, who is usually actually the one that's organizing the events and sitting behind the camera and making sure that everything is running smoothly. So I think it's fantastic to have you here on screen today, which makes a change. Holly organizes the events for LINX, and as we all know, this year has been a little bit unusual and different to normal years. So I'm going to pass it over to Holly, who's going to talk about how they've managed this at LINX. So thank you, Holly.
Lovely. Thank you, Bijal. 1 second. Right. So hi, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. I won't keep you too long because I know it's getting close to tea and cake time, especially those in the UK. But for those who don't know me, my name is Holly and I'm part of the marketing team here at LINX, and my job has had a little bit of a shake-up during the pandemic. As Bijal said, I was organising all of the LINX events, shipping a sales team out to every corner of the world. But now I am the chief button presser and voice behind the virtual LINX meeting welcomes. So yeah, I'm always behind the webinars, not on camera, very comfortable behind that. But I can't be a hypocrite and make people present at my events when they're nervous and not do the same. So here goes. But I just want to say, Rebecca, you're doing a fab job. So yeah, this last year has been a roller coaster of a year. So I'm going to take you on our journey from the highest of highs to the knots in your stomach lows. So our first kind of slide, I'm going to make this session interactive. So we're going to run, hopefully we're going to be able to run a poll. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind popping that up for me. So we're going to try and start with an easy one. And who's ever been on a roller coaster? So while everyone's voting, I'll kind of go through my first slide. So it's kind of the fear of the unknown, the excitement, it's the getting in, the buckling up, the shaking the barrier, making sure you're in that cart and it's all safe and secure. So we just had a really successful LINX meeting, LINX 108 in February, and that was in central London. Obviously then March came and things changed. When the event started to get postponed, that was kind of a little bit of a nice relaxing moment for me. I could start ticking things or taking things off my to-do list and actually getting to the bottom of things. And then they started to get cancelled, and then we had to move to working from home. And that was when it was kind of the eye-opening point for me and my industry going, it's completely shaken us. We didn't know what to expect, and we still don't. So I had to kind of start reshipping and cancelling all of our merchandise that we'd shipped all across the world. That was an absolute nightmare. Getting flights refunded and hotels refunded that we'd already pre-booked, and had to start looking at our event planner in rescheduling all of the events that we had, but we didn't exactly know when this would all be over. I think we still don't know when this will all be over. So it's, a learning game for us. So if we could launch the results, please. See who's been on the same journey. Yes, so we're all thrill-seeking people. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to the places at some point soon. But so the next kind of stage of our journey is the slow, straight start. It's the leaving the station. You can just see what's direct in front of you. You can't see what's kind of going around the corner and what's yet to come. So kind of as a membership organisation, we're all about the community, and a big task for us was keeping our membership engaged throughout this unknown time. So normally we'd do this with a few pints of beer down the pub after an event, which obviously everyone enjoyed and everyone is missing, but we can't really recreate that during these times. I mean, we can send beer out, but we're not all together. So the marketing team came together, we put our creative hats on, we had a little brainstorming session on what we could all do whilst we were at home. So now people aren't commuting, there was a little more time in the day potentially for people's personal development and refreshing all of our knowledge skills. So we thought online training might be a good start, and some more general educational videos about IXPs, kind of what they do, how they work and how links work. And obviously we can't get to events, so what are external events, external organisations doing as a substitute? So how can we get involved with that? And we did all of these for the kind of the good of the internet. So we opened it up to all of our community and not just our members, which was great. So we've seen a few more familiar faces coming in our events, and it's been lovely to see more. So we then get onto the inclines, kind of making sure you're holding on to the barriers for dear life. It's kind of the learning processes, the learning all things Zoom, the testing in the first few events. So we had big ideas of what we wanted to do. It was just the how. And this is kind of where we started to get butterflies in our stomach. So it was the learning quick and jumping head first. So what platforms were out there, what can we use, how easy is it for us as organisers to use, but also for our attendees, and how easy things are for them. So we went for Zoom. We'd already used it. We'd done 1 or 2 small webinars in the past. But we didn't expect to be running as many as we have been. And they're also now a year on, there's loads more facilities available. Hopefully we won't be using them for much longer. But I also had to think about kind of the different security features that we needed to consider. Everyone's favourite topic, GDPR. So how do people register? What data will I have? What data will we have to collect? Where will it be stored? That kind of thing. The endless testing to find out what every button did, what would happen if I did this, what would happen if the audience did that. All of those things. So a big shout out to Jeremy and Lindsay for sitting with me hours on end, testing all the buttons. And then it was kind of the exciting times, the rush of an adrenaline. So we had the first 2 events with LINX training partners, systems and network training. And our first ones were BGP, IPv6, Wireshark. We had some cracking attendance figures, and it was kind of really giving us confidence. And we were learning something new each event, which was fun. We then hit the peak. So a few facts and figures. So we've had hosted 34 live events and counting. Like obviously we're going to be running these for the future. We've got some great things lining up. So keep an eye out on our events page for that. And we've had 1,570 attendees in total over these 34 events. We've had the father of the internet, Vince Cerf, join one of our webinars. That was a big pat on the back from us and a very moment. And then by far the most impressive figure for me is that we've been viewed live from over 69 different countries. So a few of these that have caught my eye are Afghanistan, Bhutan, Colombia, Ethiopia, Lebanon, Madagascar, Mongolia, Nauru, Nigeria, Serbia, Taiwan, Tanzania and Vietnam. So to be sitting here in my little room in Lincolnshire in England, reaching all of those people, it's just massive. And I've definitely learned a lot during these sessions. So I obviously have to sit in and watch and listen for anything that goes wrong and making sure I'm paying attention to presentations. So a few things that I've learned that I'll share is Marika Kao scared the living daylights out of me when she said most people use the same security password between 100 and 200 times for logins. So after that webinar, I got straight online and changed all of my passwords, and hopefully if you listen to this, you're going to do the same thing after this webinar. The internet is responsible for over 1 billion tonnes of CO2 emissions per year. If the internet was a country, it would be the 6th biggest polluting country on the planet. And each year, 306 billion emails are sent out, and 80% of those are never opened. And a fantastic thing about the human body I learned that Bert Hubert's presentation was that the one human cell contains 1 gigabit of DNA. So it's taking one for you there. But I could pick multiple interesting facts from each of the presentations that we've had, but we can't sit here all day, unfortunately, and tell you. But they're all on our website for you to watch during a lunch break or to have on the background when you're working. So next one, another poll for you. So who has been to a virtual event where things haven't exactly gone according to plan? So this is kind of the sheer drop moment. It's when your belly flips, the oh God moments. So we've had a few of these and I'm going to share them with you because we've all been there. So in August 2020, Zoom went boom just before we were going live. So that meant our speaker couldn't get in we could run the Zoom, but unfortunately our speaker couldn't get in. Half of the country weren't able to access the Zoom. So we had to postpone that one. I've been locked out of Zoom just before going into our green room opening. And when I say green room, it's kind of like the 15-minute practice session with our speakers before we go live on the webinar. I've had speakers not turn up into the green room, not tell me, and just pop up mid-event, giving me a right big panic. And obviously we've not been able to test their connectivity, their audio visual, making sure their screen share works. So it's a very your heart stops moment when it's their turn to speak. But I mean, I've had connectivity issues. The speaker's screen share hasn't worked, so we always like to now have their presentations kind of a backup so I can share that if anything doesn't happen. When you're using headphones and microphones that aren't connected to anything, that have lost charge, and if any of you have been on a meeting before and this has happened, you kind of expect it just to chop in like normal and start changing settings for you. But Zoom doesn't do that, so you're there talking and no one can hear you, and then you can't hear anything, and it's all a bit of a mad flap trying to change all of your settings. My moderators have had connectivity issues and dropped out. So on a few occasions I've had to kind of end the sessions. Luckily we were always at the end of the session, but kind of end the session and thank everyone, which I wasn't expecting. And then things haven't recorded properly or in the right way as we were planning, so that makes putting it on YouTube and our website a bit more difficult. And then there's been bit mixed up with Zoom licenses. So at one point we had over 100 people turning up to our webinars and they couldn't get in. So it was talking to our IS team frantically going, please update our Zoom so everyone could get in. But our most recent event was the Women Tech Connect event, which was fabulous. We had 3 practice calls with our speaker. Our connectivity was absolutely fine. It was the first 5 minutes of the event, so smooth, was working perfectly. And then her connectivity all of a sudden decides to just cut out. And we lose her from the event and we kind of don't know what to do. But thank God our moderator, Michelle, she did a fantastic job of holding down the fort while we could get her back in. But as I said, every event is a learning event. I mean, I've learned something new from joining this event and being on kind of the opposite side. So we learn something new every event. And a quote that I read on LinkedIn this morning is that don't let the bad events distract you from all the progress that you've made. So we've definitely improved every event. And when you watch back our first event to our events now, they're definitely a lot slicker and smoother. But yeah, so if we could release the poll results. See who's been on. But yeah, unfortunately, we've all been there, but there's nothing that we can do. We just have to make the best out of these situations. But it's not just running the LINX events that sometimes we have those sheer drop moments. It's also the external events that take their time too. So when we're organising the team to go to virtual events with these virtual booths, it's lots of time making sure your profile is solid, making sure the organisation profile is solid, so that the AI matches you with the right people. It's the time trying to book meetings with people that you want to talk to, the prep that goes in before the meeting for them not to turn up. And it's just so hard because you can't go and grab people for a coffee or bump into them during lunch like we once were able to. As I said, we make the best out of these situations, and hopefully soon we'll be back to in-person events. I'm going to release the last poll. So has there been any events that you didn't want to end? So there's the yes or no answer, and in the chat, if you want to just let us know which events they've been. But so this part is kind of the loop. So it's not only members that we need to keep engaged, it's our staff too. We're all working from home. We've all felt lonely and isolated at some point. So it's kind of what we can do as a company or as one person sitting here trying to keep them engaged and keep everyone happy and healthy. So we've done multiple quizzes. We've had open Zoom rooms for people just to go in during a day when they want to, so they feel like they're kind of in the office, they can hear people and hear what's going on. We've had bingo sessions, we've run virtual escape rooms, we've had competitions, we've had different team threads. So team threads are like, show us your different pets, show us when it was snowing outside, kind of your snowy backgrounds, show us what window you're working from today, that kind of thing, or show us what walk you've been on. I think one of the funniest ones that, from my personal opinion, was drawing donkeys blindfolded. That was a good one. So if you want to laugh, go ahead with your teams. And we've had like fancy dressed themed meetings and different like tea breaks where we all come together for half an hour and just talk and see what everyone's been up to, maybe share some techie facts and figures or something that you've learned that week. But if we could run the results. Fabulous. Yes, great. So after this, obviously I won't look now, but hopefully there's some things in the chat, some events that you've been to. But we're now kind of coming to the end of the roller coaster. It's the moment where you kind of wipe the sweat off your brow. So very slowly we're showing some sort of signs, getting back to normality. We're coming on to the kind of the home straight, hopefully. Hopefully it's not, you don't get, sometimes when you're on a roller coaster, you give the nod to the operator and they'll take you around again. Hopefully we won't do that, but we'll pull into the station as expected. But returning to hybrid events, things that we're thinking of is kind of the bandwidth at different venues, the COVID clauses, the how can we keep everyone safe but comfortable, the travel restrictions that people are facing, how are people going to get to our events? Instead of data sheets and giveaways at events, what are we going to do instead? Obviously, we can't be touching things, well, surely, certainly not at the first few events that we go to. And it's how many people are going to attend. It's the in-person versus the virtual. And it's how can we give the same experience to our physical attendees and also our virtual attendees. So I've learned definitely a lot this year. Throughout this journey, one of those being that my labour is usually so loud and always picks the perfect time to rev his car engines because he's a mechanic. But to be fair, to give him credit, today he has been very good. It's the tractor at the front of my house doing stuff in the fields that has been the main concern for me. but luckily I think he's over the other side of the field. But I think one that we can all kind of relate to is that I'd be a millionaire if I had £1 or €1 every time someone said to me, "Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is my presentation in the right mode? And you're on mute." And then my colleagues are my rocks. Although I'm the one kind of clicking the buttons and running these events, they're kind of the brains and the support behind it. So Lindsay, thank you for always being my backup, my testing partner and talking things through with me. Jez, for always being the voice of reason and making our virtual events look visually appealing. And Nirani for bringing some killer content and being a fabulous moderator. Obviously, I couldn't do it without all of you. And to all of those that have been to our virtual events, thank you for joining and supporting. But as an events team, we are fighting a losing battle with people's times. Obviously, albeit it's a physical event, you have the person there in the flesh. They can leave, but there's not really much point. You have them there and have their full attention. Whereas online virtual events, there is always something that you are fighting with. So whether that be another virtual event, people's emails, people's meetings. So it's trying to get the attendance figures high and stay high. So all I can ask, if your friends or colleagues are hosting these virtual events, please just support them. So like or share their social posts of the events. And register if you have an interest in that topic. Register and attend the event and have it on in the background, because you never know, you might learn something new. I mean, I certainly have during these events. So kind of our final stop is the finish line, the stop and release. And that for us is, fingers crossed, next year we are co-hosting with LONAP, the EUR-IX, the 38th EUR-IX in Edinburgh. So we're really excited for that, and hopefully we can catch up in person there over some whiskey and some traditional Scottish haggis. And yeah, so that is me. As I said, this has been a massive learning journey, and we're all in the same boat and we're all on the same journey. And a big part of that is knowledge sharing. So I'd love to connect with others that are hosting these virtual events, hear what you do, how you do things. And also the other way, if I can help you in any way, teach you some Zoom tricks and tips I've kind of learned over the way. So yeah, let's grab a coffee and share. And hopefully we'll be able to see you at in-person events soon. But if not, join us at our LINX events. That's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Holly. I see we have a couple of comments in the Q&A. Enjoyed the DJs in tech session.
Thank you, I did, they were great. That was one thing. So at the Women Tech Connect event, that was the last time we used them. And a funny story with that is I like to try and be prepared for all our events. So I had them on in the background, perfectly aligned. So when the event ended, I could share my screen and the DJs in tech would play. However, they started a little bit early, and I'd had to share the speaker's screen, so I'd kind of had it covered with her screen share. And they started their set early, so I was on the session going, "Where's that music coming from? That isn't my music. Like, I've not got anything open. That can't be me." And then you see the messages on the chat coming, going, "You play music? Where's the music coming from?" And I realised it was them. So yeah, these things happen. It's just a laughable thing that you just got to laugh about. You can't control it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Minor glitches. We have a message from Eileen. What sorcery are you using to make yourself small at the bottom of the presentation? Great insight into your work, Holly. Well done. And get in front of the camera more.
Thank you. So again, this is one thing that I learned from actually Malcolm presenting at a LINX meeting. It's where you share your presentation as a background. I thought, I mean, we've all been here for a few hours watching presentations, so I thought I'd do it a little bit differently, but yeah, it seems to work.
Great. So I've actually got some questions for you as well. So what do you think? So with the EURIX program committee, we've kind of touched upon, what are future events going to look like? So I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think it is really going to be a hybrid? Is that the way that we're going to go, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think hybrid is definitely the way we are going and the way we're going to have to do things to start with, because I don't think this little COVID thing is going away anytime soon. But I think it's also a big thing for us because normally people can't always fly halfway across the world to attend events or watch these presentations. So it gives people the ability to come and join your events. Yes, they're not there and we can't share a beer with them or have a cup of tea over the kettle, but it allows a kind of extra attendee. And I also think that kind of sustainability is going to be an issue coming forward. We're always, as event managers, we're always looking for the next best venue, connectivity wise, what kind of presentation stage they have. But it's also kind of what they do with their extra food, kind of their lighting, and how they power their venues, that kind of thing.
Oh, cool. So what are you most looking forward to when we finally return back to in-person events?
Just seeing everyone, sitting in that. So when we have big LINX meetings, just sitting in that main room where everyone's around a table, they're all on their laptops, they're all enjoying the content, they're asking those questions, and the socials afterwards, just seeing everyone chatting and enjoying themselves and kind of all being back together as a community. I think, that's the main thing.
Yeah. I think we're a lot of us are looking forward to that.
Definitely. Yeah.
So thank you, Holly, so much, and I'm really glad that you finally got to present, because we were actually talking about you doing something like actually in person. But it doesn't mean that you can't do something in person eventually at a EURIX when we're all.
I got away with it.
No, not off the hook yet.
But thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. So that is a wrap. So first of all, I would like to thank all the panelists and the presenters for their time and the content. I think it's been a really interesting session today, and especially to the Forum Programme Committee, the FPC, who have worked tirelessly as always to bring this content together for you. So watch out for our next virtual forum, which will take place in June. So I'm not sure if everyone knows, but this year EURIX is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary. So on June 28th, we will be turning 20. So we will have our next virtual forum around that time, and hopefully we'll do something a little bit different to celebrate our actual 20th anniversary. So watch out for more information on that. So until then, I'd like to thank all of the attendees for staying and listening in to today's session. And until the next meeting, actually, let me just say there's also a Let's Talk, Let's Act next week. So please register for that, and where we're talking about mentoring and what that can do for you, and how to put together also mentoring programs. So, but until then, take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you all very soon. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.